So, I finally went and checked out the mad scientist house. Thursday, 17th of August 2023. Long story short, my family owns property in a very, very rural area, 30 plus miles off any road access, and we happen to live near where an old crazy mad scientist guy used to live. He's long gone, dead, so on. And I finally made the hike up to his old cabin to check it out, see if there was anything interesting left. Let me know what you think about my finds, or his theory. Dude said the mountain we live near or on is a dead volcano, and that the energy from the atmosphere is linking to the Earth dynamo through the old dead volcano tubes. Therefore, he hears a human, and certain equipment picked up the reading. Pick reads, Nature of the flow, 1. It is a small steady stable direct current flow from the southern to the northern polar regions. 2. It will collect and store itself in any material that will hold it. 3. It is well controlled in its flow by the atmosphere. Pick reads, Products of this well-controlled electrical flow. A charged capacitor, earth, lightning bolts. Static electrical charges. Basic power for cell division. Boxes of boxes and boxes of correspondence and old film slides. Pick reads, March 95. Dear Sir, during the last year I have personally delivered a comprehensive videotape to you and too many other well-selected departments of science around the world. Now I send you their names and telephone numbers for your further interest in the subject material. That videotape gives a very clear presentation of a well-controlled flow of electrical energy through the atmosphere. The PMEL, Precision Measurement Equipment Laboratory at blank, confirmed to me that the videotape does show flowing electrical energy through the atmosphere. This discovery of a well-controlled flow of electrical energy through the atmosphere clearly explains to me the mysteries of the electrical phenomena that I have lived with all my life in the field of aviation. This controlled flow of electrical energy through the atmosphere clearly explains to me the mechanics of 1. The accumulation of lightning bolts in the atmosphere. 2. The display of St. Elmo's fire around metal objects in the atmosphere. 3. The accumulated static electrical charges in many objects, including every living cell on planet Earth. As a fully qualified biologist, I firmly believe that it is this well-controlled electrical energy that governs the process of life on planet Earth, especially in its early stages of development. Your comments to me would be very welcome. Thank you, sincerely yours, blank. A bear had already been inside at some point in the last decade, shit all over the place. Lots of books. Nat Geo's back to the 60s. Almost 100 VHS tapes, mostly taped over and recorded Nature and Science and Nova specials. And lots of copies of the dude's videotape theory videos. I didn't read every description though, we'll have to go back and make a full list.
Take them and digitize them.
Also on the top of my list, I'm going to throw them all in a couple tubs and bring them back to my property for cataloging. Now, these paintings?
This is what I come to /x/ for. Does he have a computer? See if you can pull the hard drive. We can help you pull files from it.
Yes, there's a late 90s and early 2000s I want to say Toshiba laptop that I couldn't pack out. It's on the top of my list for the return trip though. I'll be heading back on Snow Machine in a few months if not sooner and before snowfall.
This guy is talking about morphic field theory and seems to be combining it with a sort of electric universe. That the Earth itself is a macrocosm of a living cell. Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, whatever dude was into was not my wheelhouse, so I'm definitely looking for interpretations. I need to find out why he thinks our property is on a dead volcano though. It's one of those hill mountains that sits by itself in the middle of a relatively flat valley. I've never heard the hum myself either.
Are you only able to go to one room? Every mad scientist has a secret room.
The bathroom is blocked off by dozens of cardboard boxes full of paperwork and old-timey film slides. We'll need to spend more time digging. There's a second-story window room with weird stairs that I didn't trust enough to climb also.
3 comments. Is that aquarium thing where the light experiment was filmed that's in the Bob Lazar documentary by Jeremy Cornell? Maybe the rocks are common. Looks like actual animals lived there. The good stuff is always hidden within 6 feet of where a person sleeps. This is because subconsciously, if there's a fire or attack when you're most vulnerable, you would want your most treasured possessions within arm's reach to grab and run. Sorry, 3rd comment, get the area metal detected.
I have no idea about the video you mentioned, I will have to look into it. I never heard of this guy ever owning pets, but he had this aquarium and a birdcage setup. Local legend says that he kept moose fetuses in jars, though I did not find any. Seems like this guy was active in the 90s to the early 2000s, and he definitely has lots of VHS tapes with recordings of himself or other things that he watched sitting around. There might be a correlation. The laptop and film slides were within that range of his main bedroom area. That's a good thought. I did not flip anything over or dig too much. I found lots of this stuff on the surface, so I didn't end up getting too deep.
Look for a hard drive.
There's a laptop. I left it there but will retrieve it when I go back. When I do, I will definitely update. I want to say late 90s or early 2000s Toshiba.
I wouldn't be surprised if when you come back months later, the place will be even more ransacked or destroyed. Or some external force of nature keeps putting roadblocks in your way back and the snow caves in the ceiling. Be safe. Try to be quick just in case.
Oh, for sure. I really wish I could have posted this yesterday when I was in the middle of it, but being out where I was, my IP address seems to be banned for some reason, so I have to take the pictures and then get back on the road system to get it online. In the back of my mind, I knew you guys were going to be screaming about the laptop, but my pack was already full. A bear had gotten in there at some point but had thankfully left most of the interesting stuff unchewed. At least at this point I know I can get up there with an ATV and back without any problem on the trail. It'll be an easier process next time. I definitely want to get the laptop, the film slides, and the VHS tapes.
A genuinely interesting /x/thread? Bump bump bump.
Tesla talked about this. Your mad scientist was not the first to conceive it. These reference books are not very high quality from what I can tell. They are also very broad in topic, indicating he may have been a student of all, master of none. Not saying he was not intelligent or anything, just he seems to be trying something that takes multiple lifetimes to study, and it would be difficult to make progress. I think he is just applying a Rika-like perspective on the natural magnetic field. Not only interesting, but not incorrect. It's why people recommend orienting things with a compass like sleeping areas and meditation spots.
Also, though I did not take any pictures of this, I was able to get the picture that he came from a Navy/Air Force background in the 50s or 60s, and had spent most of his professional career as an international airlines pilot.
Some things to consider, Anon. Papers. If not already done so, I'd pack them up. Never know what they might be, and it would simply be a shame if they were shredded because some mouse or something thought they'd make good nest material. VHS tapes. Continue with the plan to take them and digitize them when you can, with priority on the guy's own theory videos. CDs and DVDs. Same with the above, though will probably be less cumbersome. Again, priority on any info that's not a TV-ripped documentary or anything. Film and projector slides. Keep them in a sealed container that prevents light from getting in. No sense in letting them fade any further. Computers and laptops. Hard drives are a priority, of course, but do a quick check for any flash drives or memory cards. They were a lot less common back then, but it's a possibility if this guy was an academic, he might have had some. Journals and personal notes, same with papers. Keep them secure against damage. Maybe take some pics of any interesting bits. Other things. If the guy had a desk, check it. Might have some more notes and passwords, etc. I'd look for a safe too. Might be a lockbox, might be an actual floor safe. Check behind any pictures in case there's a wall safe. Check for hidden things. Older eccentric types tend to hide things in weird places. Back of the toilet, taped under a desk, false bottom in a drawer or cabinet, under a mattress, in the vents maybe. Priority should be getting the tapes and documentation, but it's something to consider for future trips if possible. Good luck, Anon, and thanks for the interesting thread.
Thank you for the advice and input. I've posted pretty much everything that I found, but I will be going back on something other than my own 2 legs and will get most of what you mentioned. This will be at least a month or 2 down the road, if not a little bit longer into the winter, so everybody keep the eye out, and I will definitely update with new information when I get the slides and paperwork and laptop and so on. Also, an interesting thing that I thought of while reading your advice was that there were absolutely no DVDs or CDs whatsoever. At least one's easily seen.
Who owns the cabin and land now? Did he have a wife or any kids? You could squat on it and take legal ownership of it. Look into your state laws. It looks like a fairly nice place.
No kids, and his wife is also in her 90s or dead, and nowhere around here. To be honest, Squatting on his property as it is right now would be worth more in my personal time than the property itself, though thankfully where it's at I'll have lots of chances to take my time sifting through. Hopefully. It's a forgotten piece of land though, for sure. Might clean it up and leave it as a bug out spot either way. I'm sure the stove still works. Well, I definitely know that he was not killed by a bear. He was definitely mostly alone in the later part of his life, and lived in this area at least from his 40s and into his 60s, well, being pretty isolated, though being married to a German immigrant as a matter of fact. My family was a little bit more familiar with her, to be honest. She had her own treasure trove of stories that are pretty much lost now, I'm sure. She had to hide out in her attic when she was, I want to say 6 or 7 years old, when the Russian army was coming back through Germany at the end of World War II. Her mother and sisters did not fare well. Anyways, one of the big things that I've kind of taken away is seeing how much effort he definitely put into this, while in the end it is literally just rotting away on the side of a mountain somewhere with literally nothing on the internet search engine to show for it. I think the moral of the story here is to have kids and start a family. You'll appreciate it in the long run when you have someone to be around in a blood-based level.
Why are you waiting so long to come back and grab the laptop? Just wondering. Love all of this.
The place in question is a ways off the road system. I was out there for 2 days and have to arrange a 2-hour boat ride or $800 flight to get back out there. I know what Anons have said, but I have confidence that no one else will be rummaging there before me. Hopefully. Glad you're enjoying the information so far. This will definitely be a multi-part series.
You need a 2-hour boat ride or plane to get there. How is that near?
Urbanite, I presume? Either way, one can live in multiple specific locations in one general area, state, or province over the course of their lives. Around here, that's close. Also, are you in the habit of describing specifically and plainly where you live on a forum like this? I'm not giving you exact coordinates. These are generalizations within an acceptable metric, because I don't feel like making up stories. Know what I mean? For what it's worth, the plane ride is shorter, as the crow flies. I may not be a scientist/Navy SEAL from India performing a bar mitzvah with 17 different degrees in theoretical physics and 93 confirmed kills, but this is not my first rodeo here, and I know better.
Very cool stuff, Anon. Well done. I'm curious to see more. We'll definitely be keeping an eye out for your future threads.
Last picture. I have some more papers that I might sift through and post portions of, but here's one of the things I did grab. Hopefully it's not a Jumanji situation. This set was on the desk by the VHS piles. Thanks to everyone for all the words of advice and encouragement so far.
What's on the tape?
Okay, you guys are really going to bust my balls for this one, but I need to get a VHS playing TV to check these out. I have one out at the property, so I'll be able to take some video or screenshots then. I'll be out for a long trip with better access in the winter, so I'll have lots of time to go over the VHS stuff myself. I know it starts with old white-haired dude explaining his theory, but I barely did more than confirm that it still works. There were more destroyed posters that I'm sure show up on the VHS also.
A list of all the books he had would be interesting. Good find, Anon.
The books were what interested me enough to check it out in the first place. If anything, they're only going to eventually burn or rot or disintegrate up there anyways. I might as well save them. I will absolutely put a list down on my list. Anon. He had 1984, Brave New World, none may call it a conspiracy, The Marx Manifesto and Cosmos by Sagan. Also, these appear to be a pre-1900 set, but I'm not sure. I barely get cell service up there, but I looked these up. History of the United States. By Bancroft. I want to say 1885 edition, but I need to do more research.
Bump. This is classic/X/shit.
Bump, this is sweet. Poor guy must have been lonely as fuck. What's your dog's name?
Do not reply to this, OP. Do not reveal any potentially relevant information or details pertaining to any part of your personal life.
The Glowies already know AI is tracking all the IPs, phones listen to us, satellites identify us from the sky, etc. Anons don't care.
I will definitely be going through them when I haul them back to my property and have the time to review them. I have a nice old CRTV with VHS player there ready to go. My dog? I don't have one. I'm more of a cat guy. What gave you that idea? Oh yeah, I know. Trust me, if I'm on one list, I'm on a dozen. I will definitely not on my end, though I may have to reveal Mad Scientist Dude's name correctly at some point. It'd reveal a little bit of the general area, but to be honest, it's rural enough and dislocated from most of the internet to the point that I very much doubt any of you would be able to make your way there or anywhere near to where I'm talking about, and if the alphabet agencies know how to get there already, well, they know how to get there already. I'm thinking if he discovered anything outright amazing, they would have already snatched up his information. But who knows, I'm going to dig anyways. The fact that he never got any of his theories out there into the seat guys to the internet on a personal level is kind of interesting. Ahead of his time. I may do that, I don't know which form that'll take, but we will see. There's obviously a lot more information to go through, and a lot more paperwork just to begin with. What I took pictures of as far as his personal electrical field theory don't give very much information, but I'm sure there is a more depth explanation in there. I will also document the videos even if it's just using a crappy camera on a phone and putting it on some weird YouTube page. I can tell I'm just kind of cracking the surface, and the overall view may be more interesting once I, along with the rest of you, will get a better big picture. I found his old Air Force/Navy class graduation book and information from his international flight pilot days. There may be something interesting there. Thanks to everyone for the advice. I need to go back ASAP.
Well, there is a dog in this photo hanging out with you, and giving you the look at a dog. Only gives its owner. I love this thread, man. Not sure if the guy is a schizo or not. And quite frankly, I don't care. I get good vibes from the place. It looks tidy and well put together. He was organized and kept his books organized. That National Geographic collection looks fantastic. I mean, the place has been ransacked by the bear, but otherwise it looks great. Would you consider cleaning the place? Or just watching over it, check and make sure nothing leaks? I doubt it will, because the old guy looked like he would have been good at fixing his shit well. Take care of the place, my friend. It seems like a special place, and it's a shame he's not had anyone to come in there and take care of it.
Yeah, well, I'll say that sometimes you ask the forest for a doggo and sometimes it provides. Its name that day was Backup. I'm glad to give everyone something interesting to look at. I've been meaning to get up here for a few years and never had the time or open schedule to get it done until recently. He was definitely an eccentric hermit to some degree, and it definitely makes me think about what it must be like to spend that much time on a theory and never have it gain any traction. I've heard lots of local stories about him over the years, and I think he's got enough interesting stuff going on that looking through it and displaying it in the public forum might be a fitting way to get it out there in a way he was clearly a little bit too early for. It's definitely a sturdy cabin, definitely might be worth cleaning up while I study it. Hopefully I'll have lots of time out there soon.
Oh yeah, and as far as the old volcano thing goes, you should be able to access geological maps of the area that will tell you. So will the rocks around the place. There's probably a geology book in the house, maybe even a local geology map.
I'm definitely keeping the eye out for geology info there, but as far as I know he's the only one who's been taking the dead volcano angle. The rocks around there don't seem volcanic, but I'm definitely not a geologist. More study needed. It's a small mountain near the base of a medium mountain, but without any close mountain range connecting it to a larger mountain. Kind of out in the middle of a basically flat plain. Thank you for the encouragement. You Anons were exactly who I was hoping to hear from. I also have the time to document the stuff, so once I get it figured out everyone will be able to view it, if only for the interesting circumstances around it. There's definitely more to the whole electric hum theory that I didn't capture in those shots. I need a decent headlight. Plus there's a ton of actual documents and VHS tapes and film slides to comb through, real rural cabin winter crazy style stuff. I'm on it.
100 post bump.
I have a feeling this thread will expire today, but keep the eye out for part 2. I'll definitely make another thread to gather news advice before I head back out there, which will be ASAP now that everyone has me paranoid about someone wiping the info before I get back. Might be in the next month, but if not, it'll be around the end of November, once snow falls.
This is crazy, but there is a chance I know who this guy is. I know the guy that I am thinking of had a cabin somewhere, but I don't think it was this remote. I think he died only about 2 years ago. If he had any connection to inland California, Texas, or oil and gas, it almost has to be him. I never exactly met the guy that I think that this is, but he was an absolute genius. The story is that one guy in the 1920s invented something that didn't make any sense according to standard physics. It wasn't anti-gravity or free energy, but it was very useful in its niche. 2 men carried the idea forward. One just used it and made a pretty good living with it. The other spent his life trying to understand it. Each of them had a kind of right-hand man that knew most, but not all of the story. Please record everything, OP. Thank you for doing this.
Will do. Keep the eye out for part 2. I very much appreciate the feedback. He did have connections to California, probably Texas as well. He was in both the Navy and Air Force to some degree back in the 50s and 60s, and an international airline pilot for decades after that, until he moved to the area and discussion. Do the initials DC sound familiar? That's also a very interesting story. I will keep that in mind. I will definitely catalog and get as much information out of the place as I can.
A lot of what you found out aligns with what I know, but the initials don't, and the location of the cabin seems a bit different from what I understood. I only knew him by a monogram, which could have been his middle name, or it could have been a nickname. If it was someone else, I find it hard to believe that they didn't cross paths. If you see anything about the Fairweather Field and magnetotellurics, then this guy was really on the same path. If you find any homemade-looking equipment, don't throw it away, but I would handle it with mild caution. It may contain some heavy metals on the order of what you would find in an old CRT monitor. Not hugely dangerous, but you probably wouldn't want to get a whiff of that stuff in your lungs. Doping glass with a bunch of elements was a big part of how they made a useful, if very temperamental device based on their ideas of physics.
Roger that. The place doesn't have a lot of airflow, so I'm sure whatever is sitting in there has been circulating for a while. I will definitely be careful. The guy had a lot of specific references and lists of people that he interacted with. When I get photos of those, I will put them up and maybe a name will jump out at you. We'll also keep the eye out specifically for Californian and Texas connections with the industry that you mentioned.
Thanks, man. I hope you can find the time to dig into this. It seems like when people with the right background start looking into the Earth's Fairweather Field, they end up asking a lot of the right questions. Just so people can search for it next time, did you come up with a name for these threads? I guess it could just be Mad Scientist Cabin.
I'm thinking these posters were for the VHS video setup, kind of a basic summary of the theory. I'm going to have to look more into the paperwork to find the specifics, but I will definitely share them when I do. I was only able to find 4 or 5 of them still intact, but I honestly did not dig through the piles of garbage laying around to find the entire set, though I would have to imagine the coherent setup is on the mentioned videos. I am hoping there is more to it than that. I'm going to type up this 5-page description that came with the VHS master copy. The magnetic dynamo gives the most logical explanation for the secret of life. For 15 years I have lived on an extinct volcano, blank miles from blank, where 4 electrical phenomenon have revealed to me the flow of electricity that could well be the needed force for the process of life to occur. The particular phenomenon that revealed the electrical flow to me was what I call the buzz. This is a continuous hum that is audible to the ear and is very similar to the noise heard beneath a high-power transmission line. 3 other phenomenon occur at blank that appear to involve flowing electricity also, which gives further support to the theory of flowing electricity through the atmosphere. When the atmosphere was tested with a steel cable and a digital millimeter on the extinct volcano, I detected an actual electrical flow at the 400 MV level of electricity, coming from the atmosphere and returning to the magnetic dynamo. The most apparent source of this electricity is from the electromagnetic field, which is powered by the magnetic dynamo in the center of the Earth. Only now have I been able to initiate many other electrical phenomenon that occur on Earth to this one isolated power source. Never before was I able to link lightning bolts, static electricity, St. Elmo's fire, and lightning from volcanic clouds to the same source of power. The most logical reason why previous association between these phenomena never occurred in my mind was because of my inability to comprehend the change that can and does occur in electrical forces within a closed circuit. Continued manifesto. The megavolt display in lightning bolts was too difficult for me to associate with the static electricity in my shirts. But when an object can be charged by the accumulation of a small electrical flow within the atmosphere, totally different electrical displays can and do occur when the accumulated electrical charge does flow. When I look at the world as a total package, it became very obvious to me that it is a simple closed electrical circuit, judging from my own basic knowledge of electricity. The magnetic dynamo in the center of the Earth is the basic power supply for most or all displays of electrical phenomenon around the world. These displays are only visible to our eyes on random occasions because much of the electrical energy powered by the magnetic dynamo remains in the resting stage for much of the time. It is only when the electrical charges can accumulate enough strength to overcome their surrounding resistance can they become active and flow. Consequentially, much of the Earth is acting like a charged capacitor, maintaining the electrical charge produced by the magnetic dynamo. The animal body is able to accumulate an electrical charge from the electromagnetic field, and I firmly believe that this is the basic power source for the process of mitosis to occur within that animal's body. The animal body and all other living organisms have the ability to transform the basic power from this accumulated charge to their required MV levels with the use of the tool called biochemistry. The magnetic dynamo is able to produce the much needed governing force to control the whole process of life on Earth.
Well, good thing the internet exists, so you don't have to live in a hellhole that is any city and can still be very productive on your research.
One thing I can say for certain was that while this guy was living out there, between probably the early 80s to early 2000s, he definitely did not have internet access. Cell phone signals out that far have only started working in the last decade, and at the very best he would have been able to have a basic dial-up signal setup.
Good thread, OP. Looking forward to part 2. Stay safe.
Ends up watching a tape that kills you in 7 days. Good luck, OP.
Fair point, but my lifelong and bloodline connection to the deep woods around me nullify any VHS-related curses. Those type of spirits don't mingle with the trees. I don't know if I'll get as far as digitizing everything, but I'll definitely have time this winter to go through VHS tapes and slides and paperwork to see if there's anything truly interesting. The real bitch is not being able to pot anything here until I get back to the road system, but that's life, I suppose. I need to get some Starlink. I mean, you can call it a lot of things, but I don't think emo is the right description of a 60-ish-year-old man in the late 90s. I'm sure he had never heard the word or understood the meaning in his entire life. The posters were there for visual representation in the self-made videos, though they are pretty basic. A deeper and more sophisticated understanding of his theory is what I'm looking for, and hoping to share. Even if it's all garbage, it's still an interesting situation. He also wrote his manifesto in cursive, so.
His stuff seems okay, but he's got some basic stuff wrong. Human beings being capacitors is correct, but the overall EM field being the result of the geodynamo is incorrect. There is no way a positive or negative electromagnetic dipole could result from the movement of magma. Something inside of the Earth is functioning as a waveguide, and personally I think it's pressure, depth, and CO2 that's responsible for the charge via the piezoelectric effect being channeled through a tubular structure semi-hollow Earth. His thoughts are very interesting, and it would be interesting to see what else he came up with. I think his instinct was correct, but I would suspect your area doesn't sit on a dormant volcano so much as rocks high in quartzite. Geologically, what are the underlying layers in your area comprised of? Also, there aren't a lot of people writing on this subject that aren't affiliated with secret societies or that haven't been compromised. Even just digitizing his materials and returning them would help. For someone like me, it would be a goldmine to see what someone who can approach the topic objectively wrote about these subjects.
Interesting. I'm going to have to research more into the local geological area. The cabin in question is near the top of a small mountain that's a few miles away from the base of a normal-sized mountain, but both are basically by themselves in the middle of a large valley. Disconnected from a range, I guess you could say. And nobody else that I know has ever mentioned or described the area as volcanic besides the guy we're talking about. I'm not an expert in any of this, but in all my years in the area I've never found a volcanic-style rock, though I guess I wouldn't know what that looks like beyond the basic idea. More research needed, for sure. I almost want to say that someone mentioned a large amount of quartz in the hill that wasn't related to mad scientist guy. I'll have to double check. Like one big solid rock almost. More info will definitely be posted when I go back. Keep the eye out.
It's also interesting that he was trying to figure out exactly how cellular division occurred, and his thoughts are interesting. We understand that ATP is converted to ADP and AMP, and then the body regenerates the equivalent of its own weight in ATP daily. That being said, if you are applying the law of conservation of energy, then we shouldn't be able to generate enough energy to continue to sustain operation unless that energy comes from somewhere else. He's asking some hard questions that no one in science is asking, at least openly. His thought it basically that through the process of capacitance, we receive energy from the Earth's EM field itself. I would be interested to know if he had any EM field monitoring equipment in the cabin. It seems almost like he selected that spot for a reason. The quartzite is important because of its piezoelectric properties. I'm thinking that he suspected that the dormant volcano was acting as a waveguide that I would suspect channeled energy to that area. He didn't consider it was the properties of the rock itself that channeled energy to that area. Something like a Geiger counter or something that has a readout in Teslas or probably micro-Teslas. If he determined that there were shifts in the EM field there, it's why he could have set up shop there. Just complete speculation here.
I know I saw EM equipment mentioned somewhere, on one of the paper documents I think. And I know he was doing his own data gathering up there. There's a very good chance that the equipment is still around. I will add that to the list.
I feel sad about the mad scientist. He worked so hard only to end up on /x/decades after his death. All his cool stuff is now just collecting dust in an abandoned house in the woods.
If this thread dies tonight, keep the eye out for Mad Scientist Cabin in the future. I will definitely check back in and remind everybody of what I have so far before I make the trek out there again. And if all goes well, I might be able to finagle a trip there within the next month. I'm glad I've produced something interesting to look into.